Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. For today's page kit process video, I am going to be using a scrapbook generation sketch. It is sketch number 12. It's a free sketch by Allison Davis. And I'll be scrapbooking pictures about gifts I had made for my bridesmaids and when I asked them to be my bridesmaid. So I am using these nice pink colored pattern papers along with this bold black and white stripe. And I spent a lot of time debating how I wanted each piece to work with one another, especially because I liked this ombre pattern paper where it has these like strips of pink. And I wanted to make sure I showcase that, so I used that as the main background piece for the layout and got as many rows of these strips as I could. And then I was trying to figure out that thin border that's between the background paper and the top and bottom. And I was debating whether I wanted to use the black and white stripe one or use the little tiny gold hearts pattern paper. At one point, I also pulled out a solid cardstock. It was pink to use as my background piece, but I really was trying to challenge myself to use the pages, the pattern paper I had chosen, and decided to stick with the black and white stripe, and I think it's quite bold. So using that as the main background, I decided to obviously use the little hearts, the little gold hearts one as the little divider in between those two patterns. Like the sketch, I also have 2 photos to scrap. And in the sketch, the photos are one on top of another. I could have kept it that way since that's how I printed them, but I personally prefer having a border in between my photos if they're going to be side by side. So since I use most of my other big sheets of pattern paper, I use the tiny gold hearts pattern paper for framing my 2 photos. Even though I know I have a ton of pattern paper to use up, I still like to maximize every square inch. So I know there are pieces of this layer behind my photos that will get covered up with the photo. I didn't want to waste the pretty gold foiled hearts behind it, and I punch out tiny hearts from that piece of paper. You see that I had used the sketch and measure how far in my punches were punching in to make sure that they wouldn't punch into the border that I had set to be around my photos. So my photos covered those holes perfectly. Now I'm following the sketch because it really helps me have a jumping off point, and how they laid out the photos is how I'm planning to lay out mine. I also am noting where they have put the journaling. I have my journaling all typed up and ready to go. I did measure how wide it was, and I had to make sure that my background piece for that journaling was wide enough for that space. It usually depends on my mood on whether I will cut my journaling into strips or whether I will keep it in a full block. And I think this time I was feeling kind of lazy, so I didn't cut them apart and do single strips and just left it all together. I did use this black and white polka dot paper, and I did my best to make sure that the polka dots still popped out. You could see them underneath the journaling, and that's what I tried to do when I selected which part of the strip I was going to put the journaling on. Following along the sketch, they had strips of paper coming out right of the photo with large stars at the very end. I did pull a bunch of scrap strips that I had left over from a previous layout. As you can tell, it has those banner ends to it, and I was mimicking the same positioning for my strips as well. I do end up changing the star icons to hearts. I think it falls better with the tiny gold heart pattern paper I had, and it works better with the theme of my page. In my kit, I had also included these long word strips that I had gotten from cut apart sheets. This on the bottom, it says, "Love this so much," repeated over and over. And I had another one where it said, "Dreaming of the flowers and sunshine." And I had thought about including them in where all the other long strips were going to be placed. The problem with that idea was the hearts that I was going to lay on top of them would cover most of those words, and I didn't really want the words to be covered up. I thought they were very appropriate for my theme on the layout. So I ended up deciding that I would add it underneath where the two major patterns are divided, right underneath that thin strip of heart pattern paper. And then I would put the other one on the top part. And it kind of fell right along the whole area where my words were going to be. So it was on the right side of the page for "Dreaming of flowers and sunshine." And I think it didn't throw the page off too much. Of course, it doesn't match what's on the sketch, but I think that's part of using a sketch and being able to make it work for you specifically. Right now I am adding my title, and I wanted my title to be "Will You Be My Bridesmaid?" It was a very long title, so I had to squeeze in the words quite tightly to make everything fit. But it does fit, thank goodness. And I was able to also get that giant heart right next to the word "be." I also set it pointing right on top of the I in bridesmaid. I thought that was kind of like a giant dot for the I. And you can see on the sketch that there's the star that's right after the title is the biggest star on the page. So I definitely really wanted to have a nice large heart on there as well. Right now I'm just sprinkling the rest of the hearts that I had got cut out, punched out. And I also used some hearts from my previous layout. I had leftover hearts, and I decided to also try to use those in here as well. There were also small arrows that were on the layout, and instead of using a small set of arrows, I had these wooden arrows. I included that in. And then also to the upper left-hand corner of the photos, I added a little cluster there because on the sketch there's a little cluster of that as well. I had some really pretty clear stickers that said "Magical," "Smile," and "Live in Love." And these helped me decide where my 3 clusters would be. That sums up my layout for this process video. If you guys enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. And please subscribe if you want to see more process videos. Thank you so much. I hope you have a crafty day.